and welcome in to this week's edition of the Hard Fowl. I am your host, Intern Joe Macheca. Joined with me, as always, is my co-host, the one, the only, Mr. Jack Veltri. And then this week, we have a special guest, one of our new interns at Gamecock Central, Miss Peyton Butt. Guys, how are we doing this fine Wednesday afternoon?
I'm doing great, man. Peyton, I'm glad you decided to come on with us today. Thank you so much. How you doing, Peyton? You nervous? You excited? What's kind of the vibe right now?
I'm good. I'm a little nervous. This is my first time doing something like this, but I'm excited and I'm doing good today.
Oh man, well you're gonna kill it. So we appreciate you coming on to our wonderful show after a phenomenal game last night, right, Joe?
Yeah, Jack, absolutely. Plenty to talk about from the win last night. As South Carolina beats Ole Miss 68-65 at Colonial Life RL. How we doing? Regular viewer there. But yeah, Jack, plenty to talk about from the game. South Carolina survives on their home floor. You guys were both there. Kind of walk me through your first takeaways from last night's action.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start, and then we can have Peyton, kind of give her thoughts on it. But yeah, another impressive game last night. I think it was almost a tale of two halves, if you will. South Carolina came out swinging, hitting shot after shot. At one point in the first half, they were shooting almost 70%, which is crazy. And it wasn't just in the first few minutes. It was like a consistent trend throughout the entire first half. And then defensively, Ole Miss, credit to them, they were shooting really well overall last night. But I think South Carolina's defense did make it tough on every possession where Ole Miss really had to take the best shot. And, they made it tough on them. But other than that, the second half is what it is. It was not South Carolina's best moment. But again, they had the big lead. And although it got down to 3 points at one point, they were able to hang on and do enough good to ultimately win the game. So that's kind of what I have. Peyton?
Yeah, I think that the first half was really good. They seemed not only really confident, but really aggressive. And I think that it worked in their favor, building that big of a lead, because in the second half, it was almost like a little bit of a different team. Not as confident, maybe too confident. Wasn't expecting Ole Miss to kind of come out of the gate that aggressive in the second. So having that lead that they built up ended up really helping them secure the win, but definitely kind of a little bit more of a nerve-wracking second half compared to the first half, but a win is a win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the bigger stories from this one, obviously, is the adjustments that Coach Beard at Ole Miss made at half. They seemed to be looking for the mid-range jumper there early on in the second half, and then South Carolina, had their backs up against the wall. Ole Miss was pushing the pressure, but South Carolina, again, one of their best attributes of this team is to be able to control the game even when, you don't necessarily have the pace. But the South Carolina defense made adjustments in the middle of the second half, right? They weren't prepared for it coming out of the tunnel, but then you saw them make the in-game adjustment. Guys, just walk me through what you saw from Lamont's team in that towards the end of that second half, making those adjustments.
It's like I don't know what kind of comparison you can make. It's like the Avengers going up against Thanos in terms of like Ole Miss's 3-point shooting being really good versus South Carolina's defense, which is also really good. And that's a battle where you don't know who's going to win. In the first half, I would say South Carolina probably had the edge just because in addition to the defense, they were also shooting really well from outside. But then the second half, you just see Ole Miss playing really well, shooting a lot of good jump shots and stuff. And again, the three ball was working for them a little bit last night. And again, this is a really good offensive group that you probably weren't going to hang down the entire game. But I think, like I said before, South Carolina did enough good things in the end to find a way to get it done. And that's in spite of going cold, I think, in the final few minutes of that game last night where your offense is pretty much non-existent. But again, you get the big plays from guys like Colin Murray-Boyles having that big block in the final few minutes. And then, that 3-point shot to end the game. It's good. It's a good kind of test against a young and upcoming team like Ole Miss.
Yeah, I agree. I think that not only in the second half, Ole Miss had a really good offense. I think BJ Mack kind of struggled a little bit on defense, and I think that showed in the score. Josh Gray was good on the perimeter though, and it kind of made up for it. So definitely some things to work on, before they continue in SEC play, but I think that it worked in their favor.
Yeah, absolutely. Peyton, I'm glad you brought up the horse. Josh Gray seemed to be, the recipe to success there in the second half, had enough length to guard that mid-range shot. I mean, and BJ went cold there in that second half. You had to make a switch. Looked a little winded there too down the stretch. So when you made the switch to the horse, got a problem, call the horse, I guess. He had enough length to defend, the perimeter a little bit. And then also, that mid-range that was killing South Carolina and almost cost them the game. But shout out to the horse for being able to get in there and step up. Jack and Peyton, one of the stats that stood out to me in this one was South Carolina's ability to score off the bench. I know it was led by Miles Studi, who obviously is a starter normally. But again, South Carolina outscoring Ole Miss off the bench 23-6. And again, that's led by Miles Studi's 12. So guys, walk me through these role players. Obviously, Studi, normally a starter, but came off the bench. Your team is better when Studi is healthy.
Yeah, this is something that I asked Lamont about last night, and then I'll have a story on it sometime this week. But I mean, you're right, Joe. I mean, the bench play, it ultimately did make a difference. And you say South Carolina had 26 points. The bigger thing for me is that Ole Miss, they only had 6 points off the bench with Jamarian Sharp, the big kid who got blocked by CMB in the final minute there. But I mean, Ole Miss's starters, I mean, most of them, I mean, Two of them played 30-plus minutes, and then you had some guys off the bench playing 15 to 20 minutes or so, but none of them could score. You look at a guy like Brandon Murray off the bench for Ole Miss. He played 28 minutes last night and went 0 for 5 from the field. And then, like I said before, Sharp was the only guy to really do anything. So the fact that kind of happened, it just speaks to, one, South Carolina's defense locking down some of their big shooters for Ole Miss. But also it speaks to the depth and talent that this roster has top to bottom. Everyone scoring last night. And obviously it starts with Studi off the bench.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and again, I did want to circle back to the horse too. Josh Gray also coming off the bench. I like to compare, him as a yin and yang to BJ Max. Yang, if you will, two different players, but also really, really, really good for this team. And then you also have Colin Murray Boyles right in the middle there at power forward. But again, the horse really, really, really good showing and was able to impact this game down the stretch.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. I think it's not even just him. It's just so many guys on this team. You have your starting five, right? It's just, even when someone's not playing well. BJ Mack did not have a great night. Michi Johnson, he did have 8 assists and 5 rebounds. So that in itself is really awesome to see. Even though he only scored 6 points. Even Zach Davis, 2 for 4, 5 points. But again, it's the guys that come in at any random time and just go out there and do their thing. Josh Gray, 4 points. Morris Ugasuk, 4 points. Miles Studi, he had 4 3-pointers last night, and then Jacoby Wright had a 3 for his stat line there too. So again, we say it all year long. It's not a one-man show anymore. This is not Gigi Jackson, Michi Johnson, and then everyone else. It's all on an even level playing field. Yeah, sure, some guys might be more talented than others, but it's not like there's a weakness on this depth chart. Everyone is more than capable of making an impact. And it's a good thing South Carolina hasn't, hit the injury bug this year yet. I mean, knock on wood, besides Miles Studi. But outside of that, it's like everyone stayed healthy. And, if someone were to get hurt, I think you'd feel pretty confident about the guys that you have that can go in there and step up like Zach Davis has so far. But if push comes to shove, you have the guys and the depth to make up for anyone that's struggling or might not be 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Jack, you brought up Michi too. I did want to talk about his defense. His defense is one of the more underrated things. He finished the night with 8 rebounds, 5 rebounds, 4 of them on the defensive end, and that kind of shows you his defensive positioning. It's something that doesn't get talked about a lot. Obviously, is Talon Cooper being the guard from the Big Ten a little bit more, and Talon's leaned on to guard the number 1, but Michi is a very, very capable shooting guard and guarding the number 2, if you will. I think it's something that doesn't get talked about enough. So Jack, I'll offer this to you. What are you seeing from Michi Johnson's defense?
It certainly doesn't get talked about enough, right? I think I was having this discussion with someone yesterday. It's as you get to March, you need your guards to be, leading the way, right? I think that's guard play is kind of the consistent factor in winning games in the NCAA tournament. And luckily, South Carolina has two really good guards with Talon, obviously experienced guard. I mean, he's in his 5th year now. This is his final stop in his, his journey at 3 different schools. But again, he's playing out of his mind right now, just really good defensively. And then you can also count on him to possibly be your most consistent shooter overall. But then Michi, look, it's been a little bit of a struggle for him lately. I think Saturday against Georgia was kind of his coming out party a little bit, hitting a few threes and continuing to play well defensively. But sticking with that defense, I mean, you just look at it. He had a steal last night. I mean, he provides the clamps on guys, that are like pretty good shooters on the other side of things. And I think having those two guys specifically at the top of the key, playing defense on the better guards on the other teams, I think is it's a very valuable asset to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, when both your guards are playing defense, especially in a guard heavy league like the SEC, right? I mean, you look at Kentucky, they're guard heavy from the top down. You look at Alabama, Arkansas, all guard heavy from the top down. Obviously, there are some bigs that can play. You look at Tennessee, Dalton Connect was a stud, but this league is guard heavy from the top down. And so you need a guy like Michi Johnson to be able to do both, right? Shoot the basketball and also play defense. I think that is a very, very big weapon to this team. Jack and Peyton, another thing that stood out to me on the stat sheet is the second chance points. This team got a lot of offensive rebounds. They finished with 10, but the second chance points, 16 to Ole Miss's 6. Being able to convert in the paint, again, a large part because of Colin Murray-Boyles. We'll talk about CMB in a second, but yeah, the second chance points have been huge for this team, especially recently.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, you can take this one. I feel bad taking all the questions here, so.
You're good. You're good. Yeah, I think that this team's playing with a lot of aggression, but also a lot of confidence. They're going into the paint knowing that they can get those rebounds, they can get those turnovers, they can get the ball. I think that they're playing like they're a number 15 team, and we saw that last night. They came out in the first half with just a different kind of confidence that I feel like people haven't seen before, and I think that kind of reflected into those points.
Yeah, no, definitely. And again, I think one thing that we've kind of yet to talk about, and I know we're talking about rebounding and second chance points here, but, there is, whether you want to admit it or not, I think there is a slight bit more of pressure and attention put on you when you get ranked for the first time in 6 years, or 7 years, I should say, dating back to 2017. But again, they didn't look like it pretty much at all phased by getting it a little number attached to their name. I think that's kind of the way they look at it, is like, Colin Murray-Boyles kind of put it best. It's cute, but it's a little number, right? It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, because we keep saying at the end of the day, as long as they're one of the 64 best teams at the end of the year, they're going to make March Madness, and they control their own destiny from there. So, credit to this team for just continuing to use that chip on their shoulder, disrespect mentality. I mean, it goes all the way back to preseason when you're looking at this team as, finishing last in the SEC, according to the media and stuff. So they still talk about it. They know that people, thought one way about them, and they're not letting it slide, I guess.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, and again, like I mentioned, leading into this point, Colin Murray-Boyles, the star of the game, finished with 16, the leading scorer, the freshman. And then obviously the big block. To anyone who doesn't think that was a clean block, I'm not sure what game you were watching, but I have seen some folks on Twitter saying that should have been a foul. That was all ball in my eyes, but big game from the freshman guys. CMB stepping up with 16 points. What did you guys see from him last night?
I'll start on this one. I saw people on Twitter. I can't remember who cares. I saw people on Twitter just, like you said, Joe, ranting about, it wasn't a clean block. It was a foul, this and that. Okay. Looking at the replay, okay, he did. All right. Did CMB kind of get all over him? Yes. But that was after the fact. Okay. Sharp had the open lane. Michi was, mismatch on him, guarding him for a second. When Michi saw a guard at the top of the key, that's when he broke off to go ahead and guard him, which left Sharp open. And obviously Josh Gray's in the middle of the paint there, but he's not quick enough to go ahead and get to Sharp with where he was at. So that kind of leaves Sharp open, and Sharp's 7'5". I mean, he had a chance to just go up for an easy layup, dunk, whatever it might be. He looked, honestly, if there was like a metric for a percentage of like how possibly he was going to be able to score that bucket, I'd say it was probably like a 90% chance of scoring that basket right there. But then with CMB's Superman type athletic abilities, jumping from one end of the free throw line to underneath the basket to get in there and block that shot, that's just a good basketball play, man. That's something that you don't see too often. A guy like that is able to jump out the gym at his height too, his size, and make a play like that. That was all ball. Like, I don't know what you want to say to anyone that doesn't feel that kind of way, but it was clearly a block. And then he's a special basketball player. It's crazy to think about the journey he's been on, right? He starts with mono. He's, in line to be a starter. Then he gets the illness, and then he has to come back and come off the bench, earn his reps, and eventually he gets into the starting role, and he hasn't looked back ever since. So I think just very impressive last night. But talking about his defense, I mean, Peyton, do you want to kind of hit on his offense and what you saw a little bit there?
Yeah. I mean, even he said post-game, since the Clemson game, his confidence has just grown. And I think that anyone watching that who didn't know if he was a freshman or not would have said that he was a junior or a senior. He was playing like someone who had years and years and years of college experience. And I think that's like exactly what he said. His confidence has grown. Coming off the bench and going through everything that he's been through this season. I think that, he felt like he had something to prove. And I think that that's really what we're seeing now. I mean, he had 9 rebounds. So he was playing super aggressively, but also just making and sinking the shots that he was taking. So overall, it was just a really good performance.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. And, obviously, again, led the team in scoring, was a very, very big part of that one. Not only the block, but, his offensive efforts as well. Guys, it was another Talon Tuesday. We can't go a Talon Tuesday without talking about the general, Mr. Talon Cooper. Finished with 12, 5 of 10 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3. With 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Talon was nails again. Exactly what you need from your leader on the offense and defensive end, the point guard, right? So walk me through what you guys saw from Talon on Talon Tuesday.
Talon Tuesday. Oh man, it's I didn't get it at first. I kind of thought it was in reference to like with LeBron with the Taco Tuesday type thing with Talon Tuesday. Anyway, bad jokes aside, he does it. I don't know how he does it, man. He's a very, very good basketball player. He shot 50% from the field last night, 2 of 4 from 3. Now he only had 12 points, which, I mean, that's kind of about on par for him, I think. But again, it's not even that. He plays so many minutes for this team. He led the team with 35 minutes on the floor last night. So he was just always out there getting rebounds, getting assists. I keep saying it's hard to imagine where this team is if it's not for him. I think he's literally, I think, in my opinion, at least, the most consistent shooter on this team. Every game you expect him to be a guy that can go out there and shoot the ball well and make plays.
Yeah, Jack, you took the word I was going to say, but he's just consistent. I feel like every game, he's not always the leading scorer, but it's consistent. You can rely on him to, put up some big numbers, but also to pass to his teammates and have just great shots. I think that he's a very consistent leader, and I don't even know where this team would be without him.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, I mean, we're getting towards the end of the show here. Now it's time to talk about some fun hypotheticals, right? Obviously, this team is probably in the tournament, right? But the question is now, how far could you guys see this team going, right? They're on, one of the best runs in program history. And, everything is looking good. And heading into the SEC tournament, you obviously have Vanderbilt this weekend and then another tough test with Auburn coming up on Tuesday. But what do you got? I mean, how far realistically can this team go?
Take this first, Peyton. I want to hear where I don't want the pressure of saying that. So
Jack and I were talking about this a little bit last night, but it's kind of like where's the fall? Where's the struggle in the season so far? And I'm a little nervous that it's going to come in the tournament. I'm a little nervous that they're only going to make it to like the round of 32, which will still be an incredible accomplishment.
Yeah.
And obviously I want them to go much farther, but unfortunately, I think we're still waiting for that. Yeah, that's the South Carolina basketball team we know moment. And I think that might be coming later in the season.
If there's a moment where not downfall, because at this point in the year, this team's just good. If it's the reality check or whatever it might need, I think that was the Alabama game. I think the Alabama game was kind of like the game where it's like, okay, we see that there are faults with this team. Now how do we go about fixing them? I think they've done that. I think South Carolina has looked so much better since that game. And then you also look at the Georgia game. I think Georgia was a game where it's like you should have won that game, but you let your own faults get in the way. You didn't shoot well from 3-point range. You were awful at the free throw line. That's ultimately why you lost the game. Not because of foul calls or anything, just not doing the little things right. So in a way, that might technically be the what's the word we use? The not downfall, but just kind of I guess I'll just say the reality check that this team needed. But moving forward, I mean, they could have another gut check type game against either like Auburn or Tennessee. But I think it's good to get these kind of games out of the way where you're kind of like, you're not invincible, right? South Carolina has 3 losses right now. It just shows that there is room to improve, despite how well they play. And I think kind of last night was kind of the same thing. Is that okay? The thing this team needs to work on is this was an issue earlier in the year, holding the lead, right? And I think last night, despite having a 17-point lead, which dwindled down to 3, you were able to hold it, and I think that's something worth saying. But in short,
I don't mean to cut you off, Jack, but does that concern you at all? Right? Does that concern either of you two that they blew a 17-point lead?
Well, technically, they did not blow the lead, Joe.
Or they didn't blow it, but they came close. They blew it.
But here's the thing. Ole Miss was too good of a team to not get back into that game, right? I think it would have been insane for South Carolina to it would have taken some really crazy type. You would have seen the shooting numbers stay a little higher than they were. I think it's very tough for a team to consistently shoot at the rate South Carolina was in the first half. And ultimately, that is why that lead got down, because South Carolina just was struggling to hit shots in the second half, and Ole Miss kept shooting at a consistent rate the entire game. So, no, I'm not really concerned about it because they did hold the lead ultimately last night. But kind of getting back to how far I think this team can go, they go as far as their defense and guards play, I think. I think Talon Cooper, we know what he is. Michi Johnson, I think he's still built for the bright lights, and we'll see what he looks like in an NCAA tournament game and the SEC tournament next month. But again, I think there's still a little bit of season left to go. We keep saying it, just you can't have a downward spiral. Sure, you can lose a game here and there, but how you respond is kind of the big thing. And I think if South Carolina can still work through some adversity as the regular season goes on, whenever a loss does come, I think they'll be better off because of it. And get these kind of games out of the way now. Get the bad shooting game against Georgia out of the way. Get the blowout out of the way against Alabama. Get the game you probably should have won if you held onto the lead against Clemson out of the way. Just get all the bad out of the way, so that way you've learned from your mistakes, so you're ready to go for the postseason. So I know that was a super long answer, but I think it kind of accomplished was looking for.
No, it's good. It's good. And I mean, I kind of agree with you, Jack. I don't think this. I mean, technically, you blew a 14-point lead, right? Because you won by 3. But I don't think that should worry anybody, right? I think that's basketball. I think they're taking note of it, right? There are a couple of things that they need to do better. Scouting being one of them. Know that Ole Miss wants to look for the mid range a little bit more when stuff doesn't start working. But scouting, just discipline, right? Staying disciplined to your keys, staying on top of it. I think that's kind of what got away from you a little bit in that second half. But again, credit to the Gamecocks because they were able to, turn the tide right back in the right direction. In terms of where I think this team could potentially end up, I think it all depends on buy-in, right? And so far, so good, right? Knock on wood. I think winning helps all of that, right? I think these guys are about as bought in as it gets, and they've been bought in. Somebody brought up on the post-game show last night that it was the Bahamas tournament. They got a couple extra practices. They were locked in from then on. And I think, what you have in that locker room is a bunch of guys that just want to play basketball. They want to win. Bunch of veteran guys, and then you have CMB running around as a freshman, learning all of this college basketball stuff. But you have guys that want to play college basketball, that want to win, right? You look at a guy like Talon Cooper. This is third school. He's here to win basketball games. Michi Johnson as well. So I think that's a big thing. You go as far as your buy-in, right? And I think you look at the 3 losses that South Carolina took, the 2 of them in the SEC. They learned a lot from Georgia. You can't get complacent on your home floor. And then you also can't, be chasing fouls, chasing the lead, trying to go with the pace of the game. You have to stay within your own game. I think that's what they learned from Georgia. And then Alabama, right? You can't come out flat on the road against a good team. I think they learned that, and they learned it quickly. You saw, that lesson take place against Tennessee. They were out quick and got the job done on the road against Tennessee. So, you learned a lot from both those games. And I think, there's potential to lose to Tennessee or Auburn. I think Tennessee's going to be get back into Colonial life with a vengeance. So, you can't rest on your laurels there. It'll be senior day. It'll be an easy game to kind of get complacent with and let it slide. And then Auburn, obviously, next Tuesday. That's a tough road test. Auburn's a really, really, really good team. And we'll see what happens tonight between Auburn and Alabama again. So that'll be a really interesting game. We'll see what happens. And then obviously if Alabama loses that one, right, South Carolina is tied atop the SEC for the lead, right? So that's very, very big game. I believe, is it in Auburn or is it in?
It's at Auburn. It's at Auburn.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to cut you off, but that kind of brings up another good point of, this team, I know there's 8 games left in conference play. They have all the motivation they need to keep playing. Obviously, it's not just the fact of, okay, we still got to prove people wrong and all this and that. We were disrespected. It's also like, hey, now you actually have a legit shot at becoming the number 1 seed in the SEC. You have a chance to win the SEC regular season crown. And I think if you're South Carolina, you do not want to be playing on Thursday in Nashville, which would mean you're either a 5 seed or lower. You want to be one of those top 4 seeds. And if you're the number 1 seed, you get the best draw, in my opinion. So it's just, I think that's what they're really fighting for. And I think this Alabama-Auburn game is going to be super interesting tonight because Alabama obviously won at Coleman Coliseum in Tuscaloosa the last time these 2 teams played. And as we know, Auburn, Neville, the jungle, it's crazy there. So I do think Auburn's going to win tonight, which would set up is it a 2 or 3-way tie? I know Auburn's been playing good ball.
I think it's a 2-way tie. I think. I don't know. I haven't checked about Auburn because that's true. They could be in a 3-way tie.
Auburn's ranked higher than South Carolina. Auburn's a heck of a basketball team. But I think the on the verge of becoming a 1 seed in this conference is more than enough motivation besides the fact of proving people wrong. Like, okay, we got to win every game we possibly can to solidify ourselves as that number 1 seed.
Yeah. No, and Jack, Auburn would be tied. It would be a 3-way tie at the top for the SEC, which is craziness, right? The fact that we're, just starting February, 3-way tie. It's going to be a fun stretch of basketball, down the rest of February and into March, obviously, as well. Guys, you want to hit some ads before we get our final thoughts?
Let's do it, Joe.
Absolutely. Well, Jack, as well as I do, tax season is right around the corner. So talk to you guys about our good friends at Liberty Tax real quick. Taxiety is that uncertain feeling you get right before doing your taxes, but you don't have to go through it alone. The tax team at Liberty Tax in Irmo, Lexington, and Columbia will walk you through the process, clear up any confusion, and guarantee you'll get the biggest possible refund or your money back. It's tax time. If you're in a hurry for a refund, call on the tax team at Liberty Tax. They are fast, accurate, and guaranteed. On the other hand, if you think you might be owing Uncle Sam, talk to the Liberty Tax team to make sure you're not paying more than you should owe. They'll find every possible deduction for you. Locally owned and operated, staffed by tax professionals from your neighborhood. Open 9 to 9 on weekdays and 9 to 5 on Saturdays with multiple service options. Start through the Liberty Tax mobile app or through their desktop portal. Make an appointment or just walk in, give a call to upload your tax documents. When you come in, your return will be ready to review and sign. Give them a call on your screen right now. And for those listening, 803-462-5576. Once again, 803-462-5576. For our good friends over at Liberty Tax. We are also brought to you by our good friend Clint Hammond of the Movement Mortgage Network. He's above us on all of our Gamecock Central live programming. In need of help with your mortgage, call on our good friend Clint Hammond of the Movement Mortgage Network. He's been in the mortgage industry since 2003, which allows him to help everyone from the first-time home buyer to the complicated and complex jumbo buyer. Whether you're looking to purchase a new home or refinance, nothing is more important than a well-thought-out financial strategy that comes with 5-star customer service. He's even helped out our very own Wes Mitchell and former Gamecock quarterback Perry Orth with their mortgages. So give our guy Clint a call. Like I said, he's above us on all of our GC live programming. 803-771-6933. Once again, 803-771-6933. Guys, about ready to wrap things up for this afternoon edition of the Hard Fowl. Before I get you guys out of here, give me some final thoughts on this win, and then also looking ahead a little bit too to Vanderbilt and Auburn.
Well, first off, Lamont Paris probably will be wearing that white gray quarter zip again. What's funny is that I don't even know if this has been talked about on here, but or whatever. But he came to the press conference last night, and I didn't see a stain, but he opened his Diet Coke bottle, and it fizzed everywhere for a second. So hopefully the quarter zip is okay. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, look, Lamont, he's pressing all the right buttons. He's doing his thing. We see it last Saturday when he makes the adjustment with the 1-3-1 zone defense. We see it last night with just the way these guys play. They are bought into the message and the end goal, the mission that he has continued to preach all year. So I think just things look as good as possible right now for South Carolina. Now the next step is continuing to play that way, but also not getting complacent.
Yeah, I think Lamont has done an amazing job and is a serious contender for Coach of the Year. And also,
Not
I
just
think
SEC Coach of the Year, by the way. I did
National Coach.
Yes, National Coach of the Year. But yeah, sorry to cut you off. Continue, Paige.
You're good. But I think that a win against Vandy at home would be some great momentum going into next week, going into a hard game that everyone knows is going to be a hard game. I think that winning on Saturday is going to be a good momentum, a good boost to hopefully get a win on the road and hopefully continue to kind of prove people wrong. Everyone thought that South Carolina was going to be a really bad team again, and they just continue to prove people wrong. So I think that they're definitely playing with something to prove, and I think that they're going to continue to do that.
Well said.
Yeah. Absolutely. Guys, anything else before we hit the road?
Yeah, Peyton, you ready to go solo on Saturday and do the full-time work?
Yeah, I'm excited. Hopefully, it won't be a close game, but I'm excited.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You guys are both doing a great job going out covering the games as I am here doing the post-game show with Mike Uva. If you missed that last night, be sure to check it out on YouTube, the GC Live post-game show. Mike Uva and I had all of the instant reaction, and then we were also joined by our good friend Jack Veltri at the end there too. So check that out.
You better include me in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So and then also I believe Mike has a show tomorrow, and then check out the walkthrough. Oh, we will also be live post-game following Vanderbilt as well. But yeah, check out the walkthrough on Sunday. Always live at 7 p.m. So be sure to check that out, and then feel free to join us next week. Appreciate everyone joining us on this Wednesday afternoon. You guys have a great rest of your week.